Are you a writer thinking of self-publishing? Unclear what hybrid publishing is? Mystified by the whole business of turning your manuscript into a real book in the real marketplace? Then this one's for you. Hello, and welcome to the Write Anyway podcast from Pages and Platforms and the Happily Ever Author Club. In today's episode, Sue talks with the founder and CEO of Luminare Press about all the pros and cons of 3 non-traditional publishing options: DIY publishing, assisted publishing, and hybrid publishing. Let's listen in.
Patricia, welcome. I'm so excited to talk to you today about independent publishing options.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Sue. This is a great opportunity to talk with you. I always enjoy our conversations.
Same here. And I think we're going to help a lot of writers today understand independent publishing options. Today, we're going to talk about various ways that you can quote unquote self-publish. If you're considering traditional publishing and self-publishing and you haven't made a decision yet, this will help you decide what's inside the box when I even consider independent publishing. And Patricia and I aren't advocating for one over the other. In fact, Patricia will talk about which of the independent publishing approaches might be suitable for what kind of writer and their goals. This is just to help you unpack what it would look like to independently publish and what your 3 basic options are. Is that about right, Patricia?
That sounds about right. Yes.
So first, tell us a little bit, just for clarity's sake, about what you do at Luminare Press.
Yeah, so I am the owner and the founder of Luminare Press. We have been helping authors publish for 15 years. We are generally a self-publishing assist company. So our authors keep 100% of their royalties, but we function as the group that helps them through the process of publishing. And I'll talk a little bit about that as one option. But as Sue said, I am not here to advocate for one over the other. There are a ton of options when you self-publish. It is very confusing for people. And I hope that at the end of this, you'll have a little clarity about what a good route to go for you as an author is.
Okay, great. Well, let's start with the overview of the 3 different approaches you can take.
Okay. So generally, I break this down into 3 categories. The first one is a do-it-yourself, DIY. The second is self-publishing assist. And the third is hybrid publishing. You have probably heard of hybrid publishing, but I don't know if you have really thought through the other 2. So I can go through and sort of break those down. What I'd like to do is sort of explain each one and then give you an idea of the pros and cons for each. And we can go a little bit into cost if we have time.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's do it.
Okay, let's start with do-it-yourself, DIY. This is what a lot of authors think of when they think about self-publishing. And the main point I want to make today, overall point, is that self-publishing doesn't mean you have to do everything on your own. A lot of authors come into this, they think, oh, well, I've got to come up with the cover and the interior and the da-da-da-da-da. You don't have to do that. And in fact, it's my opinion, and I would say a lot of people in the industry's opinion, is that you probably shouldn't try and do everything on your own. Because while it is true that you can publish a book for free using KDP and Ingram Spark, you still need to have your book edited. That costs some money. You have to have a book designer, a cover designer, interior layout, probably some marketing help. All of those things are going to cost some money. If you are doing this on your own, you can do all those things on your own, but you have to understand that you're functioning as sort of a contractor. So if you were building a house, you'd be hiring the plumbers and the electricians and the flooring people and the drywall people, the roofers, and you'd be scheduling that all on your own. That is the DIY approach. So there are tasks that have to be done to get your book published. And if you're going to do a DIY, you're going to find all the people to do those tasks. So I'm going to do you a quick rundown of the tasks, not to overwhelm you, but just to inform you. Sue will know these well. First of all, you've written a rough draft. We're going to assume that. You're going to have someone to edit it. You need to determine what level of editing it is, and you need to find an independent editor, approve the edits and the rewrites. You're going to need a book design, a cover, which is a front, spine, and back, an interior layout, somebody to make an ebook for you, And if you're going in this direction, you need an audiobook recording and a platform to sell that. For publishing, if you're going independent, you will be purchasing your own ISBN, registering with Library of Congress, doing your copyright registration, setting up your accounts, gathering and tracking your metadata, and uploading your files. And last but not least, Sue's specialty, you will be handling a lot of the book marketing on your own. And as I said, you can find people to do these things and find help for them, but you just need to understand that that's what you'll be doing with DIY. That's what you'll be doing with any publishing, but it's a question of how much you do on your own. So the pros of DIY. It is not free, but it is probably the least expensive option that you will have. It can be a tremendous learning opportunity. If you are publishing more than one book or you have a series of books, you will put a lot of time into that first book because it is a lot to learn. But then you get to use it on the next books. So it is a great reason to do that if you have more than one book. Also with DIY, you'll keep 100% of your royalties. So you're going to upload your files to the print-on-demand printers, but then all of the profits from the book are going to come directly to you. The cons, as I've already hit on some, you are the contractor. You have to find everyone. You have to keep all the parts moving. And that's not as easy as it sounds. Editor might not be free when you want them. Cover designer might not be free. You might not get your files on time. So it's a lot of parts to keep moving. You will still pay for services with DIY. It's not a free option, and you will have to vet the quality of your providers. So you don't know if you hire somebody off Reedsy.
Right, Reedsy. Reedsy, everybody, Reedsy.
Yeah, Reedsy has a lot of contractors, but you don't really know the quality that you're getting. One big con is that it's easy to make mistakes when you're publishing that you can't remedy quickly or easily. I like to say publishing is not rocket science, but you have to do it right. There is a process to it, and you don't want to make mistakes that might be costly or that you're unable to fix. And lastly, the con of DIY is that it will take far longer and probably cost more than you think it will. So as if you were building a house, you have to think about those things. And, I'm sorry I keep bringing up the house analogy, but I just finished a huge house remodel 2 years ago, which took twice as long and cost twice as much as I thought, which is always kind of the thing they say about house remodeling, right? Right. I don't think it'll be that bad for the book, but it is something to be aware of.
I think a lot of authors, when they hear DIY, they do assume that they're going to do their best to create a cover in Canva, and they're going to, go to Vellum or another service and get their book formatted. And I think Patricia and I are aligned with this. Like, if that's in your skill set, if you are a designer by day, or if you are very, very tech savvy, there are pieces of the DIY process that you can do yourself, but you're not just a product manager, right? You're doing it yourself. But really think through, what are the parts of this where I don't know what I don't know, right? I've heard you talk about book cover design and how you can spot an amateur book cover design from, a mile away.
Exactly.
Because it tells that unless you're designing book covers on the regular, you're not going to know. So what do you tell people who are wanting to do DIY because they think they can handle everything themselves?
Well, I don't mean to make light of it, but I always say, friends don't let friends design their book covers. And that's not necessarily true. But, just because someone's a designer, it doesn't mean they are conversant with book covers just because they're an artist. I would say you're probably, if you are making a book that you want to have a chance on the market, I would say really, I think, Sue, that was really good. Sit down and think about what you can and can't do. You might have great friends who are editors who can help you. You might have great friends who are book cover designers. Most people don't, because that's sort of a specialty thing. But think about that. Also, look at the books in your genre. Look at what things look like. Be aware of what a good cover should look like. You don't want your cover to stand out because it's different and everybody thinks it's weird.
Yeah, agreed. You're right. And sometimes they might not even know why it's off, but they know it's off.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, we can move on to the next one now. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that of like, please be careful about what you choose to take on yourself. It's an investment, but if you're starting your draft and you want to independently publish and it's going to take you a year and a half, create a little fund for yourself where you're chucking money aside a little bit at a time so that at the end of the project, you have the budget to do what you want to do and put out the kind of book you want to put out.
Right. Right. And putting out a good book is the foundation of all your marketing efforts.
Yeah.
So you do have to think about marketing, of course, but you also, when you get to marketing, you want to have a book that's really great that you can market. So talking about Self-Publishing Assist, a company that does Self-Publishing Assist is going to help you with all those tasks. So I'm not going to talk about that in particular, but I'm just going to give you some pros and cons of Self-Publishing Assist. So the biggest pro is that you're going to work with somebody who does all those tasks under one umbrella. And again, I'm not trying to say this is the way to do it, but if you're working with us, our team will take over. We vet all the providers, and you have the assurance that you're working with somebody who really knows the industry because we've made sure of that. And that's the other pro, or one other pro, is that you're only vetting one provider. It's Luminare Press, or it's a company like ours. They will provide you with the professionals who can do the work. And if you're unhappy, you just have to talk to the company. If they're a good company, and there are a lot out there, they should definitely back that up. And that, of course, the pro is that that'll give you a solid foundation for your marketing efforts. A professional book gives you solid foundation, and you will be able to build your author platform on that. Most self-publishing assist companies, some can offer different types of distribution, but most will work with print-on-demand printing and distribution. So you may have some options on that, which could be a pro if you want to do offset printing or bulk printing, but most will work with POD. And you will also be working on a streamlined timeline. So you don't have to figure out when the editing happens because you've turned it over to somebody else who is going to do the project management for you.
Yeah, I feel like another big pro, and maybe this is already on your list, but you don't have to tackle that huge learning curve of every
Right.
single piece of the process if you're doing publishing assist. If you like that kind of thing, then DIY sounds great for you. But if you're like, I don't want to do any of that, that sounds like a nightmare, then you want to look at getting some kind of help.
Yes, that is absolutely true. You don't have to take on the learning curve. You will learn a lot about the publishing business in the process, and that will probably be plenty for you. The cons of self-publishing assist, it's going to be more expensive than DIY because you are essentially paying that contractor to do work. Some self-publishing assist companies don't offer 100% royalties. So you want to check that. You want to make sure that that's the case. They may or may not include book launch and marketing. We do some, but we hand a lot over to people like Sue to do it. They may or may not include ongoing support. So again, we talk to our authors all the time because we like them and we're people, but not everyone does that. They can just say you're done. And the distribution, that can be a pro or a con. If you want wider distribution, if you want to be in Target or Barnes & Noble nationwide, self-publishing assist is probably not the way to go for you. I'm going to move on to hybrid. And some of you have probably heard this term, hybrid publishing. It means you are paying a company to do everything that a traditional publisher would do, including marketing, promotion, and distribution, for a share of your royalties. So hybrid is a really different type of model. The pros are sort of impressive. The company is really invested in your success because they are doing this work and getting a return on their investment too. You will have a solid team behind you to produce and market your book, which, that is not something that just is a like an add-on or a perk. You have the option for bulk specialty printing. It's not just limited to print on demand options, and that can mean wider distribution. And they often can have like a sales force and a catalog. The cons to hybrid is that it's going to be considerably more expensive. Hybrid packages are pretty high, sometimes like 3 or 4 times the amount of a DIY assist. They may have hidden add-on fees. If they are book printing, there's going to be warehousing, marketing, distribution. And I've read some stories about people being unhappy with hybrid because they wound up paying thousands of dollars more for warehousing. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but if the company doesn't disclose that up front, it is a bad thing. So you really need to check that. You will not keep 100% of your royalties, but if you sell more books, that may be well worth it. And because of the editing, the book launch, and the marketing, hybrid will often take quite a bit longer than the self-publishing assist model.
I have a couple more about hybrid publishing in particular. Another one that I've heard, because I talk to a lot of authors who have published a lot of different ways, and sometimes hybrid publishers, you don't have the amount of control that you would have if you were to do a publishing assist. Sometimes you have to get your book vetted before they will take it on, which is a bad thing necessarily. I kind of like the level of gatekeeping to make sure your quality is high. But I've had authors who had difficulty advocating for the cover that they wanted, where the publisher was just like, no, we decide on the covers. You do not, you can have a little input, but the decision is ours. Right? So you need to be deciding to independently publish because you want to control all the aspects. And then you choose a hybrid publisher. And once you get in there, you realize that it's actually restrictive on your creative process. So ask those questions ahead of time. And also really clear about what marketing help you're getting. You may actually get more marketing help from a hybrid than you would from a traditional publisher because you're paying for it. And traditional publishers give most authors very, very little. They're giving you the distribution and basically creating the product, but they're not doing a lot in terms of marketing.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And I do want to point out that when you don't have that control over the cover and things, the hybrid is invested in it too. So they are going to create the cover that they think is going to have the best chance on the market. And the pushback on that can be really difficult. If you are really an author that wants control and really believes in your vision, that's a tough one, because I think for a hybrid that puts them in a tough situation. If they're saying, maybe this cover doesn't work or your cover idea doesn't work, but you're really married to it.
The other thing about hybrids, again, if this doesn't bother you, no problem, but you will get slow reporting on sales just as if you had a traditional publisher. Whereas when you can get in under the hood and see KDP and Ingram Spark, you know exactly what your sales are.
Yeah.
When you're traditionally published or hybrid published, you have to wait for them to roll out their reports, every 6 months if you're lucky.
Yes. Yeah, that is very true. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. I've talked to thousands of authors over the years. And I think that the decision for a lot of people is difficult, but I think there are some guidelines you might want to consider. And I think they have to do with both what type of book you're writing and what outcome you want from your book. So a lot of authors come to me and say, I wouldn't mind if it was on the New York Times bestseller list. I wouldn't mind if all these things happen. But in reality, they really don't want to put the time and effort or money into making those things happen. So I think as an author, it really pays to sit down early on the process and think, what's this going to look like 6 months after I've published this book? What do I want from it? Do I want my friends and family reviewing it? Do I want it in Barnes and Noble nationwide? Do I want to be on podcasts? How do I see my life after the publication of this book? A lot of my authors publish for friends and family. They're writing a book. They want some people to read it. They just want the book out there. It's like a bucket list thing. So if that's the case for you, DIY or self-publishing assist are going to be a good way to go. I would not go hybrid. I would not spend the money if that was what my goal was. I would also, and I have heard this anecdotally, and I can believe it's true, that hybrid does not do well with fiction.
Mhm.
Have you heard that, Sue? Or
I wouldn't swear to it, but I've heard like in conferences and stuff when I'm seeing panels with people, I've heard that. Yeah. Hybrid is going to be a really good option if you've got nonfiction and you've got like a business behind it.
Right.
That's really smart.
Because if your return on investment is what matters, and that's another thing I hear authors saying, they say, I just want to get my money back. And even with that, you sort of have to have a plan to do that. Hybrid works really well for business, nonfiction, and things that are going to see a return on investment in something other than book sales or something in addition to book sales. Book
Yeah.
royalties are going to bring you some money, but it's going to be that next client you have or that speaking gig you get or whatever it is. If you're mission driven, maybe it's a book that you published as part of a nonprofit or something, or you want to enlighten people about those things. That is a really different thing from publishing a book of fiction or a novel that you want people to read or a memoir. I think this is true for memoirs too. So if you're writing series fiction and you want to make it big as an author and be known for the series, which it's probably going to take a few books to do that, I would consider either DIY or self-publishing assist to be the way to go. A model I really like is we do self-publishing assist and that's your package. But then when authors come back to us, we kind of say to them, hey, we could just make the interior and the cover for you and save you some money for your next book because you can learn how to set it up for publishing. So there are things you can do if you're a series author, like you can learn it from the self-publishing assist and then go DIY for the next books. Or you could learn the whole DIY thing, find yourself a great editor and cover designer, and just do your books yourself. I saw a really interesting thing the other day. I saw an article about hybrids that are writing people's life stories. The price tag was around $100,000
Wow.
because these were older people, retired people who wanted to get their story out there. And the interesting thing about this, aside from the price, was the covers, which were terrible. I was like, so even if you're not publishing to sell, you want a nice cover. You want a cover that has nice typography and is appealing and not just a photograph of your family slapped up there with some script over it. You really do want to think about the whole book as you're thinking about how you want to publish. And I think the point I was trying to make with that story is that spending a fortune doesn't necessarily get the best results always.
Agree.
So just because something costs a lot, it doesn't mean it's going to be a great product.
Yeah. And I think it's really invaluable to talk to other authors who've worked with that publisher. Not only was the product something they were proud of, but how was the process of working with that publisher? So you can do a lot of vetting ahead of time to prevent the heartache of either having a really frustrating experience or having a product that you're not happy with.
Right. That's a really good point. And it's very important. It's important to vet your providers and know who's working for you. One thing I didn't say, but we could do a whole discussion on this. There are a ton of scams out there too.
Yes.
You need to avoid them. The ways people get scammed, it's like whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
Trying to let people know what they should be on the lookout for. But there are probably more companies out there that are scammers than there are legit companies. Find somebody who's legit.
Yeah. And again, the way to do that is how long have they been in business? Do they show you the authors who they've worked with? Do they allow you to talk to those authors? Right? Like really do your due diligence before you cut a big check.
Yes. And there's a few places online that review things like that. Writers Beware is one. The Alliance of Independent Authors is one. So there are places you can check for that. Again, that's part of your homework when you're thinking about this.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, Patricia, thank you so much. I think this was a really helpful overview to help people understand what's involved and how they can get it all accomplished, and appreciate your time so much.
Yeah. And if anybody has any questions, anybody can set up an appointment with me or Christine, and we will walk you through things. We are not hardcore salespeople.
Absolutely. So luminarepress.com. We'll put a link in the show notes too if you wanted to talk to Patricia and see what her team could help you with. Okay. Thank you, Patricia.
Yeah. Thank you, Sue. This has been very, very enjoyable. Thanks so much.
Very fun.
You can learn more about Luminare Press, download a free guide to self-publishing, and book a consultation with Patricia or one of her colleagues at luminarepress.com. And if you'd like a weekly dose of writing insight and mindset and marketing tips in your inbox, subscribe to the Write Anyway newsletter at pagesandplatforms.com/subscribe. And that's it for this episode of the Write Anyway podcast. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.